Hi, so today we're going to be talking about our persuasive campaign. And initially, we had talked about renovating and remodeling residence halls around campus. And then, with more recent issues, we realized around campus was the derecho and the impact on to the campus environment. And so we understood that we should work towards the need for trees, especially since we didn't see Co-College itself immediately working to fix this. And so we know on August 10th, 2020, Co-College was hit by a derecho. And a derecho essentially is a set of widespread windstorms. And this one specifically stretched from Iowa all the way down to Indiana. And the winds were on the upwards of 110 miles per hour. The entire population of Cedar Rapids was affected. The storm took out the power for almost 3 weeks, the whole city being affected. Another big thing that had happened was there was a gas shortage, and I know personally this caused a lot of mass panic around the city and on Co-College's campus. The damages from the storm, specifically around Cedar Rapids, range from $60 to $80 million to fix, but this didn't include the cost to replenish damaged and lost trees around the city. We know that half of the trees around Cedar Rapids were destroyed or at least heavily damaged, and specifically around Co-College, around 200 trees were lost. And this is important because if we don't start working to fix this, it will only work to get worse. Emma Hannigan, an urban forester with the Department of Natural Resources, said that the wounds left by torn limbs allows pests and pathogens such as oak wilt to infect damaged trees. And once it affects these trees, it's going to be even longer time for us to regain this overgrowth of trees and this abundance of trees and this tree cover that our city has. And we will see the effect of this for the next 30 years. Here we can see a picture of Co-College and the tree life that we had. And this is a before and after posted to the Facebook page. And if you look at the aftermath, it's really dead and it's dull, and it kind of like killed the environment of campus life, both the energy and the environment itself.
Yeah, and with that too, I feel like it's definitely apparent like how much of a difference this storm made on just the amount of trees and greenery around Co. Just looking at how many buildings now you can see in that second picture compared to the first one that are just completely covered by trees is actually crazy. And then, so kind of going off of all of that information, we decided for our campaign, our goal would be to advocate for the replanting of trees on Co's campus after, 200 plus trees were lost in the storm. And then as we were brainstorming, we realized, like Delano said, no one from Co had given any updates or any efforts, that they were going to take to try to replant trees. There was just a specific focus on cleanup, which was definitely needed. But we thought it'd be really fun to try to replenish the trees on campus, since that's such a big part of the Co campus and the Co community. And our target audience then would be the Co administration. Our plan would have been to kind of present this idea to them and see what they thought about the replanting of trees, since they hadn't given us any information on that. And then we also knew that another kind of part of our audience would be students and people in the Co community who would help us replant those trees and volunteer their time. And so after we established our target audience and tried to organize our message a little bit more, we moved towards planning our campaign. And firstly, our overall goal was just to replant trees on campus, but we also started talking about how we would need donations from other people in the co-community or beyond. Just, just because trees are expensive, we were going to need supplies, but also volunteers too, which I've already mentioned, but that's huge because obviously we can't replant all of the trees on Co's campus by ourselves. And then with our audience in mind, with our goal kind of established, we moved toward research, which we put a lot of in our paper, but also kind of throughout this presentation, working towards kind of looking into what the derecho did in other places besides Co, how it affected Co specifically, how many trees were lost in Cedar Rapids and not just Co. So we really kind of looked into, all of the news articles and everything, and a lot of graphs of, wind gusts and that kind of thing that were released after the storm in August. And so with this research, we were going to present our idea to the co-administration. We knew we were going to need the research just because we didn't want to present the idea to the co-administration without, some background. We didn't want to just suggest the idea to them. And obviously part of the project was to, be fully prepared. So we wanted to learn more about the derecho and apply that to how the need for trees was just so important following the storm after so many were lost. And then along with that, in order to present this to the co-administration, we were going to need to ask for donations, like I said. So we created, let me go back here to this letter that Delano had written to home improvement stores. This is just a screenshot of a little snippet of it. Just asking for donations and saying, the co-community, we lost $2.25 million in cleanup efforts and property losses, which is huge. So just trying to say, trees are really important to Co's campus. We would love if you could donate either supplies, but specifically trees to campus for us to replant. And then we also wrote an email to P-Plant reaching out for supplies, stuff like shovels and posts that would be needed to see if they would be willing to give those to us. And then we also created this Instagram page, which would allow us to kind of like get the word out there and spread the word that we were going to be replanting trees. And there's a couple pictures of the aftermath and then of one of the new trees that Senate had ended up purchasing, but we'll get into that later here. And then in addition to those things, we also created an infographic, which is incomplete on the right side of the screen, but we took a couple screenshots to kind of, so you'd be able to read it a little bit better on the PowerPoint. But we wanted to highlight the really important information about property damages, why trees are so important, and links to donate and links to sign up to volunteer. So we thought this would be really useful to potentially put in the dorms or residence halls on campus, but also share on perhaps Co's social media pages to get alumni to reach out and volunteer or donate a tree or some money in an effort to help with the rebuilding of the trees at Co. And then in addition to that too, here are the links to donate and to volunteer. The volunteer one is just a Google form, which I'll share right here. And here's a screenshot of some of the questions we came up with, asking what your name is, what part of replanting did you want to participate in, what days are you available. We were thinking this would probably be a 2 to 3 day thing, so Wednesday through Friday. And then asking what specific times in a 1 hour increment people would be able to donate their time. And then just kind of wrapping it up and talking about how our campaign ended up. Shortly into the beginning of the campaign, Student Senate had reached out to the co-administration and planned with them to replant the trees on campus. And word kind of got out that week that it was going to be happening. which was it was definitely surprising to us. That was about in mid-October, and they had advertised through their social media account and co-social media account that this would be happening, and had created a website for alumni to give donations and anyone else in the community who was willing to contribute. And then with their campaign, they had over 150 volunteers sign up and come to replant the trees. And for them, it only took about 2 days. And they had over 120 new trees to replace the 200 or so that we had lost in August. And they ended up having several donors and donations, including Paul Bachman, who was a alumni and graduated in 73, and he owns a nursery. So Bachman's Nursery also donated a lot of trees and help towards the project. And the Clark McLeod and Planting Forward initiative, along with Living Land and Waters, Cargill, and the Cedar Rapids Relief Program, and co-alumni. And then kind of through our research about their campaign, we learned that several organizations on Coe's campus also contributed money, including sororities and fraternities, who came up with about $20,000 just from these organizations on campus, which was huge. And the co-administration, like I said, had also created a website for alumni specifically to donate their gifts to in an effort to replant trees on campus. And as we were kind of concluding and reflecting on our ideas for the campaign compared to theirs, we realized that their campaign was more successful for a couple of reasons, but one of them being timing. We learned through our research that it's best to plant trees before the ground is cold, before winter hits. So in reality, when we would have presented this campaign, this week or last week, we wouldn't have had enough time to replant the trees. The ground had already been cold, it had already snowed. So we really would have had to kind of work around the time issue. We found that in the spring, it's actually not as beneficial to plant a tree, like a lot of people might think because of the rainfall, but in the fall specifically, before the ground gets cold, is the time to do it, which we wouldn't have been able to jump on quite as well as Senate did.
Okay, our ending kind of got cut off there, but essentially, in conclusion, although the storm was 4 months ago, cleanup still remains ongoing in Cedar Rapids. However, there are several new trees, including the 120 at Coe College, that have been replanted in an effort to regain some of those trees that had fallen in the August 2020 derecho.